Phil Dobson here, author of The Brain Book and founder of Brain Workshops. In this video, I want to help you sleep better. It seems to be a growing problem, certainly in the training rooms and the clients I work with. All too often, a show of hands will demonstrate that a large number of us are regularly sleeping less than 6 hours a night. And slightly more of us are sleeping between 6 and 7 hours a night, where we know, not only us, but the scientific community has known for decades that we need 8 hours. It says between 7 and 9, but really the research is pretty clear. 8 is what you need, so don't think it in terms of a target or a nice to have. I would argue that it's essential. So in this video, I want to give you my top tips, more principles really, to help you sleep better. So fall asleep quicker and easier, stay asleep for longer, and critically, wake up feeling more rested, more recovered, so that your brain is optimized for the rest of the day. So, how do you sleep better? I think the first step is to acknowledge really why it is so important. So studies done for many years now have explored the differences between a brain after 8 hours sleep and after 6 hours sleep. And reliably what happens is there is a cumulative sleep debt if you sleep for just 6 hours. So some studies have demonstrated that if you sleep for just 6 hours a night for 10 days in a row, your subsequent mental performance on day 11 or day 12 will be similar to as if you hadn't slept at all for a whole night. Now, I'm sure most of us can remember what it's like to not having slept for a whole night, and imagine going to work expecting you to perform at your best. And yet 6 hours doesn't seem like too little for many people. Well, it really is a problem, and one of the big problems here is how little we seem to be objective about our subsequent cognitive performance. So the people in that study, after 10 days or 11 days of sleep deprivation, 6 hours, most feel they're performing exactly the same as if they'd had 8 hours. And the experimenters show them the results, and suddenly there is this wake-up call, pardon the pun. So 8 hours, you need your 8 hours, whether it's for short-term mental performance or, the more we learn about this, also long-term mental health. As you're listening to this video, what's happening in your brain, lots of things happening, but one thing in particular is you're building up a toxin called beta amyloid, a plaque that throughout the course of the day elevates, and when you fall asleep, your brain is washed of this toxin, so that ideally, when you wake up, your brain is back to baseline level. Now again, if you repeatedly sleep for less than 6 hours and you build up this chronic sleep debt, the risk is you build up a progressive amount of beta amyloid, and that we start to associate with the onset of things like Alzheimer's. So I'm not here to scare you. Instead, I'm here to emphasize how non-negotiable sleep is for short-term mental performance, for learning, for memory, for emotional regulation, and for long-term mental health. It's non-negotiable. So, how do you sleep better? To sleep better, understand it's not a skill that you need to develop, right? You're a mammal. You're pretty good at sleeping. All you need to do is to create the right 3 conditions. Now that sounds a simplification, but sleeping well should be simple. We're built to sleep a third of our life. So when you don't sleep well, or you feel that your sleep's disrupted, I think it's just because one of these 3 conditions is a little bit out of whack. So if you go through and you create these conditions sequentially, trust me, you will sleep well. So, the 3 conditions for sleeping well. Number 1, your physiology. Begin by regulating your physiology. What I mean by that is relax your body. What you need to do to create a state where sleep becomes inevitable is to trigger your parasympathetic nervous system. All that means is you need to practice meditation, or mindfulness, or do a progressive relaxation, something that brings your nervous system down so your cortisol levels start to drop, any adrenaline levels start to drop. Many of us have stressful days, right? And that's fine, I suppose, but if you don't manage that stress response, then you've got these things pumping around your body that are designed to keep you alert and consequently disrupt your sleep. So that is where you want to begin. Regulate your physiology down by doing deliberate relaxation. Now, if we think about your physiology, the other thing to acknowledge is that your temperature, core temperature, drops significantly when you fall asleep. So you're not just bringing down cortisol and adrenaline, you also want to bring down your core temperature. So what you can do is bring that forward. For example, I'm not suggesting a cold shower, but you want to be particularly wary of any activity that elevates your core temperature. Exercising too late will take you longer to fall asleep. Eating your dinner too late, because that increases your core temperature, will also likely affect your sleep detrimentally. So that's the first thing to begin. Think about your physiology and think to what degree can you start to regulate it down and consequently start to slow your body down to create a natural sleepy state. Condition number 2 is all about your environment. Now, your environment, the environment in which you're trying to sleep, you can acknowledge would be quite important. It's not just about a fluffy pillow and a comfortable bed, both of which are important. But the real culprit here is light exposure, blue light in particular. You probably know it's going to be harder to fall asleep in broad daylight than it is at night, not just because of your circadian rhythms, but because of the actual blue light exposure and what it's doing to your retina and your brain. So in order to sleep well and naturally, you need to create a dark environment. And one of the challenges we have here is this smartphone that we are, let's face it, becoming ever more addicted to. You need to make sure that your environment has an absence of light, and another way to say that in a more practical way is your bedroom needs to have an environment with an absence of a smartphone. There's no real reason to have your smartphone in your room. You can buy an alarm clock, but really there's very little positive reason to be checking your phone first thing or last thing. And if you're doing that, then even the small amount of light is telling your retina that, well, it might be daylight outside, and consequently it's going to take you longer to fall asleep. It's going to make it more likely that you wake up in the middle of the night, and guaranteed when you do finally wake up the next morning, you won't be as rested as you could be. And then step 3 is all about managing your mind, right? We've done your physiology, we've done your environment. Now let's talk about your mind or your brain, because all too often people say it's my overactive mind that keeps me up. And we've all been there, right? When you've got a big meeting the next day, perhaps all these thoughts going around your head. Well, I think it's not really a overactive mind that keeps one up. It's just a mind that needs better management. So what can we do to improve that? I think the first thing is to have an evening routine that enables you to stop working after a certain point. You choose the time, but if you are still working on anything in the last 60 minutes or even 2 hours before you want to fall asleep, it's probably going to take you longer than is necessary. Also think about your values. Do you really want to be working 16 hours a day? So that's the first thing. Have a routine that gives your brain downtime. Right? Your brain needs time to start to shift state and slowly become less active and consequently more natural to fall asleep. The other thing I think when we talk about managing your mind is to also do a weekly brain sweep. A brain sweep is just a simple activity that takes 5 or 10 minutes, which is a preemptive emptying of your mind. Pen and paper or an app, and you just spend 5 or 10 minutes getting any unattended tasks out of your head. So it'll be things like, I don't know, sending your niece a birthday card, or picking up the dry cleaning, or changing your holiday insurance, booking a flight, all the stuff that just kind of life admin. This is the worst place for it. It makes you less effective during the day. It makes it harder to focus, harder to sustain your attention. And critically, if you have a habit of keeping stuff up here, it's reliably when your head hits the pillow that suddenly you're like, oh, I didn't send that birthday card. So once a week is all you need to do. That's the frequency with which you need to do it. But once a week, do a brain sweep, get it all out, and then have a system that you trust. Now that's a big conversation, but ultimately you need to have a system that you trust these tasks and errands are done at the right time. And then the last thing, I suppose, about mind management, if you still find it difficult to empty your mind or to keep it kind of clear and sleepy, then focused meditation can work wonders. Some of my clients who I've taught meditation to say a simple counting meditation, counting your breath, for example. Close your eyes, start counting your out breath in cycles of 1 to 21, just maintaining your focus on that single activity, what you're doing is you're giving your brain something to do rather than be distracted by all these thoughts. Before you know it, you'll have drifted off. So, quick recap. Sleeping is not a skill that you need to develop. All you need to do instead is to reliably and regularly create the right conditions. Number one, your physiology. Regulate your physiology down, trigger your parasympathetic nervous system. Number two, your environment. Get comfortable, but critically eliminate blue light, not just from the bedroom, but from the last hour or two of your evenings. And number three, manage your mind or your mental overwhelm. Do regular brain sweeps, have enough time for your brain to shift state as well as your body. And if that doesn't work, then start to do a meditation before you get into bed or when you're in bed. You see, you do these things, I guarantee you'll start to sleep better and consequently get all the benefits of natural, healthy sleep. Improved cognitive performance, improved memory and learning, improved emotional regulation, and improved long-term mental health and lucidity. Hope that's helped. More resources and tips up on the website as ever, brainworkshops.co.uk. And if you think someone you know would enjoy or benefit with this video, please send it their way. Until next time, best of luck.